Redditors, what started off as a small lie, but then snowballed into this is my life now. I moved to a new city when I was in 6th grade, and on the same day I started, 2 other boys started, and they both knew how to skateboard. So I lied and said I did too. Then for months I lied about being able to skateboard to them and other kids at the school, and I never came clean because I didn't want anyone to call me a poser. So I bought skater boy clothes and a skateboard and learned how to skateboard because I lied about knowing how to skateboard. Still skating since then. I'm 27 now. Friend of mine started a job. Shortly after starting, they were having a company BBQ. He looked at the sausages and was grossed out by them for some reason. So he claimed he was Jewish to have a polite way to not partake. Lie snowballed and compounded, and he ended up converting. He is now Jewish. A buddy of mine's dad had a funny ongoing joke of sometimes referring to his son's friends by similar, but incorrect names. Trent became Trevor, Scott became Sam, Ethan became Eric. Just silly stuff like that. So in that vein he starts calling me Donald. Jess is my middle name. My first one starts with D. At first I thought he was joking, but he just didn't stop. It's been years, and now that we are all moved out and on our own I rarely ever see him. But he still calls me Donald whenever I do, and at this point it's way too late to correct him. Said I was a amateur boxer until a real fight popped off. Guy was huge. I just put my hands up, pretended I knew what I was doing. Meanest face I could make. Guy stood down, said fuck that. You could tell he knows how to fight. I signed up to my nearest boxing gym the next day. I actually love it. Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty good with Excel. No I wasn't. And now I'm an analyst at a Fortune 400 company. Told a small lie to a girl I was texting that I love running. Dunno how it sold because I was fat. Started running the second after I sent that 5 years later I went from 298 to 180. Not bad. People picked on my brother in high school for getting jumped by someone, a blood thugs in the bathroom. Popular thugs, if you can believe it. It was relentless. His confidence and any friendships were crushed. Cause, you know, people can't be seen with the loser. One day I was confronted by said thugs, basically talking shit about my brother, and in my infinite wisdom, I said I could box, so they better back off. Something to that effect. Looking back, I cringe, but you do what you have to. Needless to say, they did not back off. Somehow, I landed a punch on one of the kids that dislocated his jaw, like flapping around like a mouthpiece hanging from a football helmet. I became the kid who could box, but never wanted to fight, which I guess gave me credibility. I don't really know. Everyone and their hyena came to me asking where they could learn said boxing skills, how I'd learned by 16, all that crap. I'd wanted to just come out and say I had been lucky, but I didn't want anyone to give my brother shit again. So the lie stayed. Luckily, no one ever picked on my brother afterwards, and I did eventually learn some boxing fundamentals, but most because I felt like I was living a lie, which I was. As a man, I have not had to keep up the facade. I didn't want to go to dinner with the gang from work, including my boss, so I told them I was having dinner with my wife and her parents. I lied. I get home, wife wants to go out to dinner. So, we head to the restaurant, and just as we are getting near the door, I see the work gang with my loudmouth boss all piling out of their cars. What are odds of us picking the same restaurant? Shit. Busted. There was an old couple walking into the restaurant in front of us. I held the door for them, and insisted they join us for dinner. They were quite perplexed, but accepted my offer of a free dinner. It was the most uncomfortable dinner ever. They had no clue who we were, none of us had any shared interests. They rushed through dinner, thanked us, and got the hell away from what I'm sure they thought were a couple of weirdos. I've been making EDM since I was 13, and in my senior year of high school I had the opportunity to play some of my music live with Ableton for my classmates at an event. But, because I couldn't explain what I was doing in the space provided on the sign up sheet, I just put down DJ. thinking that nobody would be knowledgeable enough to know the difference. Apparently everybody liked it so much that the prom committee asked me to DJ prom, and like an idiot I said yes. I waited for my birthday and made sure that nobody got me any gifts, just money, which I spent on software and a mix track pro. I learned how to DJ in 3 months, did prom, got paid $250. I'm making decent money off of gigs now, and I do the prom every year. This is a lie that ends well. 40 years ago, when I was my final high school year, I decided that I wanted to be a civil engineer and study civil engineering. My father, who probably had some doubts about my choice, arranged for me to spend a week in a civil engineering office owned by a friend of his. I spent a week there and definitely knew one thing afterwards, that I did not want to become a civil engineer. So, a couple of months later, I was walking through the center of town and met the owner of the civil engineering company that I had spent the week with. He says, "Hey, CHF, how are you? Still planning on becoming a civil engineer?" I'm a bit flustered, as I often was at that age, and don't know what to say, so I say, "No, actually I've decided to study HMM. Computer science." The first lie, he says. That's great. A career for the future. We say good day and go upon our separate ways. A few weeks later, while I'm actually sitting my final school exams, he calls me and says, "Hey, CHF, I'm starting a computer company, would you like to join?" I say, but, I'm about to start university to study computer science. The reinforcement of the first lie, he says, "Great. We'll pay your university and you work all your spare hours for us." So I was trapped. Because of my lies, I ended up studying computer science in a top university and getting a great degree and postgrad degree while earning a full income on the side. This was the 80s. But the silver lining was that I actually fell into a career that I absolutely love and never want to quit. I became friends with one of the managers at Panera. One day as I was giving a cashier my order, he told her to give me the same discount as they give to firemen, police, and paramedics, I think. He just chose this discount as it was an easy button to push on the register. Well, this cashier really thought I was a fireman. I'm not. So for the next 2 years this cashier gave me the discount. Even if she wasn't serving me, she would go out of her way to tell the cashier that was helping me, "He's a fireman, give him the discount." It snowballed into such an awkward situation that I didn't know how to get out of it. Luckily that cashier eventually transferred to another store and I now happily pay full price. You're here for the copywriting position, right? Yup. I was the only one in the waiting area. Thought I was there for a design/art direction role. Within 15 minutes of the interview they offered me $2,000 to move and $45,000 starting salary a week before graduation. When I first got married back in 2005, my wife asked me if I like creamy peanut butter. I knew she did, so I told her yeah, that's great. She buys creamy peanut butter, I buy creamy peanut butter. About 3 years ago, she's doing some experiment or something with our daughter and she needed chunky peanut butter. I saw it in the pantry and exclaim, "Oh, chunky peanut butter, I love this stuff." To which she responds, "You do? I've been buying creamy peanut butter all these years because you told me that was your favorite." So long story a little shorter, we both prefer chunky peanut butter by a large margin, but had been buying creamy for 10 years because we both thought it was what the other preferred. Reading that back, we are pretty boring people, yep. I was homeless, sleeping under a bridge in Charlotte near the music factory. I needed a job, so I dressed as best I could, which wasn't very well, walked into a bar on 7th, and lied about my work experience. They gave me the job. I started working that day. They paid me cash after every shift. I worked there for 3 years, became the manager, and now I love cooking. Never cooked a day in my life up till that point. A lady, in her 50s, who was acting as the kitchen manager trained me. She knew I lied, but she also knew I was in trouble. I couldn't even cut a tomato. She saved my life. She didn't tell anyone, and kept training me, even though sometimes I'd piss her off, but I always tried to do better. I got an apartment a month into the job using another cook to call the apartment and let them know how much I get paid cause they wanted that for some reason. I was getting paid $11 under the table so nothing was on record, which is why he had to call. I worked as a line cook immediately. It was overwhelming. I'm not from the city and the work was fast paced. I would study on my time off by watching YouTube and cooking at home. I was working at a small company about 10 years ago, around the holidays. It was approaching Thanksgiving, and the ladies in my department had organized a potluck luncheon. I was adding my contribution to the sign-up sheet when I noticed that one particular co-worker had signed up to bring brownies. She was a nice, single, older woman who had many pets at home, 2 to 3 cats, and as many dogs, and was regularly covered in a layer of pet fur. The day of the party had arrived, and everyone was going around filling their plates. There they were on the dessert table, the brownies. I didn't want to eat any of them, but I also didn't want to be impolite, so I told her I couldn't have any because I was allergic to nuts. Fast forward 9 years, and I'm out with a friend who had also been a co-worker at this company I had kept since that job. After a few drinks, I tell her, tearfully, that I have a confession to make. I'm not really allergic to nuts. She burst out laughing, thinking it was going to be something much more serious than that. She is the only person I have made this confession to. My freshman year of college, I was walking around campus when a very friendly looking girl waved at me. I'm awkward, so of course I waved back. The next week, the same thing. This began the weirdest saga of my life. For the next 2 years, we greeted each other as old friends every time we came across the other. She knew my name. Somehow, I never could figure hers out, and it was way too late to ask. I just pretended I knew who she was and why she knew me. Finally, I joined the honors program and entered my classes for my thesis. Who should be in this class but mystery girl? I was horrified. I wouldn't be able to pass it off anymore. First day of class, we are all sitting there chatting, and she greets me by name again. I had finally learned her name from attendance, thank God. Someone asks, finally, oh, so do you two know each other? Where'd you meet? Silence. I stare at her. She stares at me. Finally she breaks down wailing. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, we've just been waving at each other for 2 years, and it was too late to ask. She's standing in my wedding next spring as one of my bridesmaids and very best friends. You have a message from the T-Pose man. Like and subscribe for nothing in return.